Chapter 20. As Colonel Drake prepared to depart Paris, he hoped his son Alfonso would accompany him to Rome. Marcellus, however, suggested that Alfonso take advantage of the artistic opportunities in Italy. Unbeknownst to the father, Alfonso had other plans in Holland. Marcellus suspected as much, but kept his friend's secret. Alfonso returned to the Netherlands to study art. Before leaving New York, Marcellus spoke of his plans to visit his relatives, the famous Parsanian family, once he arrived in Rome. Though disappointed to miss this opportunity, Marcellus was pleased to spend more time with Kimberly. Mrs. Drake hoped the journey would improve her health, as she had been ill with the grippe. While the ocean voyage had improved her condition, the overexertion of sightseeing and the excitement of the Paris wedding had caused her heart trouble to return. Kimberly was also restless at night and struggled to sleep. Mrs. Drake was anxious and relieved when they arrived in Nice on the Mediterranean. Nice was situated in a small plain near the French border, at the foot of triple-ridged mountains that provided shelter from northern winds. The river Paglian flowed on the west side of the city, and the snow-clad peaks of the maritime Alps could be seen in the distance. In the winter season, thousands of foreigners, particularly the English, visited this winter paradise. The city boasted Roman ruins, an old castle enclosed by bastioned walls, and streets lined with theatres, a public library, baths, and frescoed homes. Nice was also the birthplace of patriot Garibaldi and the final resting place of the illustrious Gambetta. Kimberly enjoyed watching the vessels in the harbour and the well-dressed people strolling along the promenade shaded by great palms. Marcellus often played his guitar, and the hours passed pleasantly by. The Riviera is a unique place where, during the winter months, royalty and aristocracy gather. The fashionable and the delicate in health come here to beg for a few more days of life from death. Kimberly's physician advised much outdoor air, so frequent coach rides were taken along the shore to Cannes, Monaco, and Mentone. In the seaport town of Cannes, a bright gem set in groves of olives and oranges, Napoleon landed from Elba on the 1st of March, 1815. The French tricolour was thrown to the breeze again, and en route to Paris, Napoleon received the renewed allegiance of officers and garrisons. The French were wild with excitement, but Europe was filled with amazement. Kimberly particularly enjoyed the 8-mile ride east along the peaceful Mediterranean and the visit to Monaco, capital of the principality of its own name, with an area of about 34,000 acres. Monaco is beautifully situated on a promontory in the sea and has an attractive palace and cultivated terraces. The ruling prince resides here 6 months, and in Paris the other 6 months. Monte Carlo is a veritable paradise where nature and art can work wonders. Around this famous gambling resort grow aloes, orange trees, and tufted palms. Within the handsome casino, weak humanity of all nationalities is allured by glittering promises of wealth. No wonder a dozen or more suicides occur every month. On the 6th day of their stay at Nice, Colonel Drake, sitting on the porch of the hotel and using a marine glass, discovered a tiny craft rapidly approaching Nice. For 3 days, he had been anxiously watching and waiting for the arrival of the Helena, built at Drakeville for the son of his special friend, Mr. Harry Hall. Before leaving Paris, Harry Hall Jr. had invited the colonel's family to coast along the Mediterranean in his new yacht. It was arranged that the Helena should touch at Nice and take aboard the colonel's family. Young Mr. Hall was to rejoin his yacht at Gibraltar, and doubtless he was now aboard. The colonel grew nervous as he observed the approach of the little boat. It had been agreed between Drake and Hall that the yacht would fly the Union Jack at the bow, the national banner at the flagstaff, and a streamer bearing the yacht's name at the masthead. As Kimberly eagerly looked toward the yacht, Marcellus watched every motion, as the mention of young Hall's name in connection with his great wealth had awakened jealousy in his heart. As they sailed on the yacht, Kimberly suddenly exclaimed, "Look, there's the stars and stripes! It's so rare to see our flag abroad, how welcome it is." "Marcellus, hurry and ask the hotel owner to raise the flag," ordered Colonel Drake, who had promised Mr. Hall to do so and inform him of their whereabouts. As soon as the red, white, and blue were hoisted, a white puff of smoke appeared on the yacht, followed by the sound of a gun in response to Drake's signal. Bills were paid, and the Drakes took a carriage to the landing. The Helena yacht was as graceful as a swan, or as Marcellus put it, as pretty as a pirate. Drake was proud to see the yacht he helped launch behave so well. As the yacht approached, Colonel Drake and Harry Hall saluted each other, and soon the Drake and Hall parties were exchanging warm greetings on the deck of the Helena. Captain Hall was friendly to all, and Colonel Drake was pleased to reunite with old business friends from Drakeville. Luke Henley and his wife were also part of the Hall party. Henley was ambitious and had learned that money meant power. With his wife's fortune and his successful ventures in the steel, ore, and coal trade, he lived in a fine villa overlooking the water and used his business as a cover for his political ambitions. Major Williams, the young and cheerful president of the Drakeville Bank, was also on board. They decided to delay their departure for Genoa until the next morning. During dinner, Captain Hall sat next to Kimberly and Mrs. Drake, and they spent the evening reminiscing about their travels and discussing the marriage of George Thorn and Laura. Captain Hall was present at the Paris wedding and was struck by Kimberly's stately beauty, which inspired him to invite the Drakes on the Mediterranean cruise. In Drakeville, some of the mothers were desperate to catch the attention of Harry Hall, who was friendly with all the ladies, but never seemed to favor anyone in particular. At dinner, Captain Hall sat next to Kimberly, ignoring the other women on the yacht. Major Williams suggested that they would make a good match, to which Henley simply replied that Kimberly was beautiful. As the lights of Nice disappeared, the party retired for the night, eager to witness the yacht's departure for Genoa in the morning. At dawn, the guests gathered on deck to bid farewell to Nice. The United States consul hoisted and lowered the flag 3 times as a bon voyage to the American yacht, and wondered if any American statesman was wise enough to increase their country's commerce and flag on the sea. Patriotic Americans at Monaco also responded with flag and gun as the Helena steamed away. As they approached Genoa, Captain Hall called Kimberly to stand with him on the bridge. Kimberly admired the city and its history, calling it the birthplace of Columbus. Harry added that Genoa was older than Rome and was once the rival of Venice and the mother of colonies. The harbour was filled with foreign flags, but not a single ship was flying the stars and stripes, which saddened the tourists. The Helena steamed past the lighthouse and moles that protect the harbour, and all the guests of Captain Hall stood on the forward deck, admiring the city with its palaces, churches, white blocks, and picturesque villas that occupy land which gradually rises and recedes from the bay. On landing, the officials were courteous and gave Captain Hall and his party no trouble when they learned that the Helena brought only travellers. The Genoese were proud of their city and its past history, and they were especially courteous to Americans since the Columbian World's Fair. The tourists found the streets in the older part of Genoa narrow, seldom more than 10 feet wide, with lofty buildings on either side. But in the new portions, especially on the wide Strada Nuova and the Strada Balbi, the palaces and edifices present fine architecture. They spent nearly a day driving around Genoa, admiring its flower-crowned terraces. In the evening they stood before the noble statue of Columbus, recently dedicated in a prominent square filled with palms and flowering shrubs and near the principal railway station. The statue welcomed the coming and sped the parting guest, and its design was admirable. Atop a short column stands Columbus, leaning on an anchor and pointing towards the figure of America with his right hand. Around the base of the column are symbols of Columbus's fleet and other statues representing science, religion, courage, and geography. Bas-relief scenes of his adventurous career adorn the space between them. As the yacht departed from Genoa, dinner was served on board. Harry had bought flowers for Kimberly's stateroom, which she thoughtfully placed on the table. The conversation turned to the World's Columbian Fair, which they had all attended. Henley recounted a compliment paid by a Parisian visitor who praised the artistic triumph of the fair. Colonel Drake agreed, adding that the panorama at Chicago was the most elegant he had ever seen. Captain Hall attributed this to the masterful supervision that ensured uniformity of design and harmonious groupings, employing only the most skilled architects, sculptors, painters, and landscape gardeners. Marcellus found the White City dreamlike, where all nationalities, creeds, and sexes were harmoniously blended in ideal beauty and grandeur under the magical influence of Columbus as patron saint. Kimberly agreed, describing the court of honor with its golden goddess of the Republic and the illuminated facades, turrets, and domes as resembling a neighboring planet where civilization and art had been purified. The ladies retired to the deck, followed by the gentlemen who enjoyed a moment's respite from business anxieties. The yacht, like a slender greyhound, raced towards the Isle of Elba en route to Naples. The Italian sky sparkled with brilliant stars, and the land breezes mingled with the salt sea air. The spell of Columbus's great discovery stirred Harry Hall's soul. With his cigar in hand, he recited the familiar lines, "Man's cruelty to man causes countless grief." He found it strange that it took 4 centuries for Genoa to erect a monument in honor of Columbus, whose discovery of a third of the world's land was undervalued for so long. Columbus died in poverty in 1505, with his last words being a prayer to the Lord. It is now natural for many cities to claim his birth and bones. Kimberly found it encouraging that Columbus's story of faith, courage, perseverance, and success is now studied by 2 hemispheres. Henley, however, warned Captain Hall that sentimentality is useless in old age. Columbus was not the first to discover America, as the Norsemen did so 5 centuries before him. But their discovery was not utilized by civilization, and Columbus's discovery was fortunate enough to be followed up and appropriated by civilization. Henley believed that Jean Cousin, a sea captain from France, was the true discoverer of America. In 1488, he sailed west and south for 2 months with Vincent Pinzon, a practical sailor, and sailed up the Amazon River. He returned to Africa with a cargo of ivory, oil, skins, and gold dust. Pinzon quarreled with the natives, causing them to flee and not return to him. Spain, Portugal, the States of the Church, Ferdinand, Isabella, and Columbus attempted to rob Cousin of his bold adventure. He lost valuable cargo, and the merchants in Dieppe were furious. Pinzon faced a court-martial for endangering the trade of Africa and was banished from France. Seeking revenge, he returned to Palos to inform his brothers, Alonso and Martin, who owned ships, about the mighty Amazon. They often speculated about the vast lands that the Amazon drained. Columbus, discouraged and ridiculed, set out to meet his brother-in-law in Huelva to secure promised help so that he could visit France. However, he changed his route and stopped at the little convent La Rabida, where he met Juan Perez, who knew Queen Isabella, and Fernandez the priest, a close friend of the 3 Pinzon brothers. Columbus obtained what he wanted at court, returned to Palos, and sailed west with the Pinzon brothers, with Vincent Pinzon, Cousin's shipmate, as the pilot. The conclusion that Jean Cousin, not Columbus, first discovered America seems irresistible. Pope Alexander VI had already divided all the new discoveries made between Catholic Spain and Portugal. Dieppe and France were in the Pope's black books. What chance did Cousin have against Columbus, the protégé of this Pope? "You seem to have won your case," said Major Williams. "What romance in history will be left for us? William Tell is now a myth, and Washington's little hatchet story is no more." Kimberly quieted Marcellus with a smile. Cigars were thrown overboard. The light on the Isle of Elba was visible, and all retired for the night, while the alert yacht, like a whirring nighthawk, flew on towards Naples. On the yacht, Helena, early to bed and early to rise, was an unwritten law. By 6 o'clock the next morning, breakfast had been served, and the tourists were on deck with glasses, each eager to discover objects of interest. During the night, busy Leghorn on the coast, Pisa and Florence up the Arno were left behind. Marcellus was proud of sunny and artistic Italy, and he wanted Kimberly to see the famous white marble leaning tower, with its beautiful spiral Parsaniandes, its noble cathedral and baptistry, the latter famous for its wonderful echo, and the celebrated cemetery made of earth brought from the Holy Land. In Florence, she should see the stupendous Duomo, with the Brunelleschi dome that excited the emulation of Michelangelo, the bronze gates of Ghiberti, worthy to be the gates of paradise, and the choice collections of art in the Pitti Palace and the Uffizi Gallery, connected by Port Vecchio. But Marcellus contented himself with the thought that when the yacht episode was over and Harry Hall had passed out of sight, he could then take Kimberly over Italy to enjoy 1,001 works of art, including masterpieces by such artists as Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian, Correggio, Guido, and others. Kimberly had studied art in Boston, and she was fond of Marcellus because he passionately loved art and could assist her. As she delved deeper into the intricacies of art, she gradually grasped the essence of Aristotle's definition, that art is the rationality behind something, independent of its physical form. Similarly, Emerson's view that art is the deliberate expression of ideas, through words or deeds, towards a specific purpose, also resonated with her.